Clawdeen Wolf is a lesbian. No one could tell me that Venus wasn't black. How many black dolls have you owned as a kid?
Actually only one.
Especially as a black person growing up in Staten Island, I just feel like you see yourself in the people you're surrounded by.
Bratz for me is less of like owning things. They were really like the gateway to me like expressing on like, you know, an actual figure.
So being surrounded by other people that weren't of color, that always like gave me a little bit of a warped idea of like my identity.
No, she's a baddie.
Okay, like it's a doll. Like,
Yeah.
that's disgusting.
Why is that doll pretty?
Because she's white and he has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Greetings, Animuffins or cadets, and welcome back to the channel of Animorphia. It has been a long time since I've sat in front of the camera like this and actually talk to you guys, and there's a reason for that. Life has been really chaotic. I'm 22 this year. It's been fucking batshit crazy. I couldn't not stay away from YouTube for some reason. I did get new piercings. I got these about a month ago. I'm still not sure that I like them, honestly, but maybe at the end of this video I'll end up liking them. Also, I'm in front of a park with a bunch of little boys playing basketball or whatever, but we're not focusing on them. Today, I wanted to focus on a topic that I've been researching pretty heavily for about a month and a half now, and that is the topic of black fashion dolls. When this channel first started out, it was a stop motion channel dedicated to my doll collection at the time. I was like 13 or 14 when I first started this channel initially, and I didn't have a lot of views and I did not have the amount of subscribers that I have now. However, I was really passionate about dolls and the doll universe. As you know, I'm a fan of Ever After High and Monster High. My dilemma was, why is there always a scarcity problem within the doll community of black fashion dolls? From Barbie to Cedar Wood to Clawdeen Wolf to Sasha from Bratz, it's hard to deny the representation and the contribution of black girls in the fashion doll scene today. However, it wasn't so a century ago, or even 30 years ago for that matter. Modern mass toy industries in the early decades of the 20th century often sold toys and games rooted in anti-blackness, populated with racist caricatures from blackface, minstrelsy, and vaudeville. According to Radical Play by Robert Goldberg, many of the African-American racist memorabilia and dolls would be collected and played with by white girls in the early 20th century as some sort of quote-unquote status symbol. And this was kind of like my opinion towards the whole situation, because I really did want to break it down into, like, I don't know, something that you guys could understand, so I hope this makes sense. It is this ongoing pattern of ignorance that is so often displayed with older white female art dealers, collectors, and historians when it comes to preserving or even collecting racist dolls, art, and items that depict black people as subhuman and our trauma. This idea that you feel you're doing society a favor by preserving these racist images in your home for the sake of education and history speaks to an unconscious need to hold on to times in which there was a glaring power struggle between whites and black. Times in which you were the captor of the captives. It is comparative to white teachers reading the N-word in the Mockingbird play and claiming it's for historical accuracy. This type of behavior even traces back to the Atlantic slave trade, where white people would collect black body parts such as hair, bodies, decapitated bodies as a symbol of ownership, quote unquote. Your reluctance to give up your collection is a direct correlation of your reluctance to give up power rooted in white supremacy. I say burn it down, that's my stand. Not taking that back. There's no use in keeping these racist caricatures alive. It's time to forge a new path. This doesn't mean we forget, but it simply means that we are shedding a false image and narrative of ourselves that needed to be deaded years ago. Art can and should be destroyed just as it is created. The destruction of art is just as important as the creation of art. I would even argue that it is necessary in order to forge new neural pathways into the fabric of society. I'm pro-destruction just as I am pro-creation. We must call to action a destruction of these racist memorabilia so we can free our ancestors and, most importantly, free ourselves. Black people, it is time to let go. Let it die, let it burn. You argue that these figures have cultural significance in Black history, but I argue that they hold no cultural relevancy, especially during cultural revolution. I personally think that we should gather this racist shit in all the museums and all the useless collections of vaudeville that people are still profiting from and throw it into a big bonfire into the middle of the woods and watch as the fire reaches heights not known to man. In this video essay, I analyzed the different eras of the Black fashion dolls, and I will share with you how themes of radical truth-telling, realness, and altruistic viewpoints are the main contributing factor behind the concept of almost every single non-racialized Black fashion doll's history.
In 1947,
Across the country, doll integration was as reluctant as it was tokenized. Patty Jo was the first non-offensive, non-stereotype Black doll produced in the 1940s, as the demand for Black dolls in the toy market rose. This is an excerpt out of Radical Play. It reads, Patty Jo was based on a popular comic book character at the time. Of all the cartoons that Orms produced throughout her illustrious career, the one that stands head and shoulders above the rest is Patty Jo and Ginger. Debuting on September 1st, 1945, this 11-year-old comic strip featured curious little sister Patty Jo and chic big sister Ginger in a clever series of timely commentary. In 1947, Terry Lee Doll Company taped Orms for permission to produce the Radical Play doll inspired by the outspoken fictional character. And just like that, Orms created the first comic-inspired American Black doll with stylish wardrobe to match. Today, these dolls are highly coveted collector's items and a symbolic icon for Black girls in America. It's clear that Patty Jo was like making waves in the 1940s, in a time when Black women were often depicted as unintelligent, clumsy, mammy-like caricatures. With big lips and bandanas, Orms' character offered a refreshing alternative to this image. Patty Jo encouraged young Black girls to be themselves unapologetically. She represented a new beauty standard that young Black women could aspire to. This further emphasizes my point about careful consideration and an expression of radical transformation every time that Black fashion dolls have hit the scene. Patty Jo was a radical act of art. Her cheekiness and relatability to Black audiences at a time of uncertainty, segregation, grief, and fear was a breath of fresh air. At a time so tense, Patty Jo brought laughter and play to those who needed it the most. She was like Black doll Jesus. At this point, there was an ongoing conversation about Black children living in segregation and the negative effects that being racialized had on your psyche. Not seeing yourself represented and not having a positive racial self-image was the core of the damage. Dolls actually play a significant role in mending those wounds. So, Anamorphia, what the hell do dolls have to do with Black children and their psyche? Let me introduce you to Yeah, these actually played a really integral role in how we view dolls and play today. On page 96 of Radical Play, it reads, during the 1940s, the Clarks performed a series of clinical studies famously known as the doll test that were undeniably public understanding of racial identity formation in the US. The objective of the test was to understand Black children's development of racial self-concept by assessing their attitudes about Blackness and whiteness. The dolls were projective instruments, not the subjects of the studies. Using one white doll and one Black doll, both produced by the toy manufacturing F&B, and identical except for their color, the test administrators asked their study group of Black children to say which doll was the nice doll and which one was the ugly one, and which one was the one that resembled them the most. The majority chose the white doll as nice, and the Black doll was the ugly. Meanwhile, many children stated that the white doll resembled them. In Clark's interpretation, these results reaffirmed the conclusion that they and other psychologists had drawn from earlier studies of racial self-understanding, including their own, that Black children internalized racial hierarchies around them from an early age and therefore grew up feeling inferior to whites. Thus, they argued the Jim Crow system of segregation and inequality with its daily indignities of second-class citizenship and exclusion wounded and irreparably impaired Black children's personalities, leading to self-hatred. Okay, so furthermore, these studies concluded that Black children internalized inferiority complexes amongst racial hierarchies from an early age. By the age of 7, African Americans recognize themselves as dark-skinned. Stigma remains, and they equate their dark skin to a feeling of inferiority. which is why representation done right is so important. Some of our parents either didn't have the finances, time, or education to search for a black doll that really represented who we are or what we liked, you know? So often we can grow up feeling left out of the doll scene or like there's something missing, which is why I'm a big advocate of buying black dolls, even if you're an adult now. If you've never had that magical experience of seeing yourself represented in a doll, I think giving yourself that representation is so fucking healthy and it's so healing for your inner child. It does a lot to see yourself or imagine yourself in that doll. You know what I mean? I'm here with
Ilana.
Denise. How old are you? 23. Your name?
Sunshine.
Sunshine? Oh. How many black dolls have you owned as a kid?
As a kid, well, my parents always were like very big into that. They always wanted me to see myself in the things that I played with. So I would say well over like 15.
All my dolls are black.
Really? Okay, slay. Like Barbie, Mattel,
Bratz. Actually only one.
only one.
That's
Okay.
an ice skater.
Oh wow. Was it still like Barbie?
Yes.
Do you feel like it was better for your development as a child that you did own more black dolls?
I would say it's like yes and no, especially as a black person growing up in Staten Island. I just feel like you see yourself in the people you're surrounded by.
Right.
And so being surrounded by other people that weren't of color, that always like gave me a little bit of a warped idea of like my identity.
Exactly.
But then looking at those dolls, I'm like, okay, well she's a baddie, so like
Yeah.
I could be a baddie.
You can be a baddie.
Yeah.
How do you feel about black parents giving their kids only white dolls to play with in this day and age?
I feel like in this day and age, that's just completely not necessary. I feel like there's just so many options. Like,
There's
look,
so
a literal
many
green
options.
doll. Like,
Exactly.
there's so many options, so I feel like it's a little bit ignorant. No tea, no shade. If a parent only is buying white dolls, because there's just so many options, and I just feel like we're past that.
Why are you black? You get a white doll.
Exactly. Exactly.
Why are you doing that?
We also live in an era where we don't have to be so reliant on companies distributing dolls. We now have the purchasing power to buy customs from black-owned toy shops and toy makers who specialize in making dolls of all kinds. Online purchasing platforms such as eBay and Mercari help to distribute that quote-unquote doll wealth and level the playing field for doll and toy makers of color. Speaking of companies, who exactly are the faces of black toyland in the dolly conglomerate? We live in an age of woke branding and inclusivity as a strategy so that these corporations always stay one step ahead. But was it always so? Was Mattel, creator of Black Barbie, really so inclusive and empowered to begin with? Or were they fearful of inclusion and only cared about representation as long as they had some money to pocket? Or is their past more problematic than we know and believe our beloved Barbie to be? Part 2. Mattel's controversial take on representation. The rise and fall of Mattel Enterprises. Mattel, founded in 1945 by Ruth and Elliot Handler and Harold Matson, proved to be pioneers when it came to committing to black dolls and marketing the products as well. In 1962, Mattel released their first black doll, a brown-complexioned version of the popular Chatty Cathy, originally released in the same year, 1960. Darker-complexioned version of popular white doll lines as colored Chatty Cathy Baby soon followed suit. Sure, Mattel was a big pioneer in the integration of black dolls. They only recognized the demand for black dolls when it came to their pockets, and they were reluctant to change stereotypes and actually identify black consumers as people and as a diaspora. Big words for that time, I know, but part of racialization is dehumanization. Not recognizing black people as a whole, not listening to them or including them in creating any of these toys and selling Chatty Cathy knockoffs is quite literally lazy marketing and shitty branding strategy. On page 90 of Radical Play, it reads, "It was one thing for manufacturers to integrate black dolls into their existing lines, another to feature them in ads as part of their available inventory. In the early 1960s, most of the industry's leading companies were still not ready to do that, at least not publicly. And I really want you to remember that when you think of Mattel Enterprises, when you think of Barbie, Monster High, Ever After High, so on, whatever, still not ready as this common theme within Mattel that would stay with their business practices for generations to come. As many of you know, the documentary Black Barbie came out pretty recently as a response to all the Barbie hype during 2023. I was initially reluctant to watch it because, one, I'm personally not the biggest fan of Barbie. In fact, I remember watching Barbie the Nutcracker movie at age 6. This is a real story. On one of those really old DVD players back in 2008, mistaking a Gorilla Glue bottle for eye drops and gluing my eyes shut during the movie. Yes, this actually happened. So while I contemplated the very reality that I would be blind until my mother returned home from work to take it out of my eyes, Barbie was dancing around to the Nutcracker, re-traumatizing me. True story, by the way. But anyways, I just knew there would be some kind of bias against this documentary, but I ultimately decided to watch it because I could not escape the fact that Barbie is a cultural zeitgeist in this day and age, and most would want to hear about the first Black Barbie, right? Well, here's what a representative of Mattel said when asked if Barbie would ever get her own show and world, since she had always been considered a sidekick. As we know, whenever they would feature Black Barbie in any of the movies, it would always be the sidekick, the mammy character, the BFF. Those roles. Oh my god, I'd rather be a villain or the main character, but I'd just rather be the villain. My realization is that even if it moves a little bit, I'm doing the job. We're doing the job. He said in a very rushed, hassled tone. Pace matters, and sustained pace that is achievable, that shows market impact matters. I find it interesting how Mattel tiptoes around racial concepts when such is necessary for integral change, yet claim to be a pioneer in the doll industry when it comes to inclusion. Much like Mattel's work with Chatty Cathy and Barbie, they have a way of including black dolls and characters in the world building of their white counterpart. However, the black character is often a sidekick or a side character to the main character and will often aid the main character in fulfilling their purpose. This was most certainly true and noted for the doll series Ever After High. My favorite show in the universe, thank you very much! This was and still is the best show of all time. I was absolutely obsessed with seeing fairy tale characters in a way that was not commodified by Disney. So this show quite literally shaped me when I was younger. It's important to note that Ever After High was introduced to the mainstream in 2014 with just one black character, Cedar Wood. Towards the end of the series, i.e. 2017, they started introducing black characters and characters with much darker skin tone, just before their abrupt cancellation. Black women hold a deeper self-understanding and radical acceptance. We are told every day by media portrayals that we are undesirable and unintelligent, every single stereotype under the sun. An unencumbered, radically self-accepting person chooses not to lie, therefore has the potential and the power to see truth in everyone else. Cedar is classified as a rebel. I think it's most likely due to her class status as a puppet maker's daughter and her destiny to tell the truth instead of lie. She hopes to one day become a real girl and lie, as opposed to constantly telling the truth. Cedar's dynamic with the other Ever After High characters just hit way too close to home. She is not in on the in-group, not just because she's cursed to tell the truth, even though that's most likely what it was, but because she's different. Her being paired with Cerise Hood, daughter of Red Riding Hood, who was also very secretive about her identity and very private, was also an interesting choice. When Raven, Queen, daughter of the Evil Queen, refuses to pledge her destiny, it's depicted that Cedar Wood is one of her biggest allies. Cedar is joyful about seeing her friends embrace themselves for who they truly are. When Cedar gets the revealer raise in the Throne Coming special, she is adamant about telling the truth and uncovering Headmaster Grimm's lies. You can see a bit of character growth from her, owning her destiny, stepping on that podium as she tells the world her truth. Okay, young Angela. Okay, Miss Audre Lorde. Low-key, I hope to do that on my channel, by the way.
Part 3. The altruistic themes of Cedar Wood.
It's no doubt that Cedar Wood equates being a real girl with the presence of lies, as lying is instilled within us. Not only for patriarchal gain, but for capitalistic gain as well. I mean, lying can be applicable to so many other isms, microcosms as well. Homophobia, racism, ableism. With regards to women in the most recent generations, we are susceptible to the compet ideology and the illusions of the makeup and cosmetic industry under the guise of cyber capitalism, materialism. Being a woman living in a maximalist society in general, it's a spin on a spin on a spin. A double meaning on materialism. Geppetto is a puppet maker and is surrounded by material. Ever After High is a doll franchise. Cedar can't wait to do what we do, speak how we speak, engage in gossip. Unlike her male counterpart, her nose does not grow when she lies because she simply cannot. Maybe being a real girl entails having the ability to lie but still valuing honesty anyways. Maybe that's what being a real girl is about. What would you consider your definition of a real girl? In the original tale of Pinocchio, written by Carlo Collodi, it ends with the puppet being hung. Like, it's really morbid and dark because violence and patriarchy. Capitalism and patriarchy work hand in hand to destroy women. Materialism, aesthetics. How are you being bought? Feminism, which is prevalent in today's world, is one that can only cultivate consumption in some kind of way. It's almost like they are trying to combat oppression through shopping. Medium.com says. Mattel's history of calculated pattern recognition for sales, but lack of effort in terms of recognizing they are all still perpetuating racist stereotypes. Introduced in 2010, Monster High was a frightful hit amongst the masses. Clawdeen was a main character in Monster High from Brooklyn, New York. Rumors spread about her having sapphic undertones throughout the first and the second generations of the show, as a writer came out and stated that there was queer subtext. There was also speculation about the executives at Mattel saying, oh, we can't confirm that Clawdeen is a lesbian, or we can't confirm that so and so is gay or whatever because it's not the right time. And they were caught saying that in the early 2010s. So it's interesting that when gayness is at its most lucrative and profitable, here Mattel is, guys, Frankie's not binary now. There's no problem with that. I just want to acknowledge Mattel's history before claiming that, because you don't get to claim that you were a pioneer when you were a pussy before that. I mean, let's get real here. You don't get to claim that you were a pioneer in the integration of black fashion dolls or LGBT representation when you acted in secrecy and in reluctancy for years now. And when it benefits you, you don't get to pick the apple off the tree.
Just push the button and she starts to giggle. Get baby laugh a lot by REMCO.
Now you might be asking yourself, Anamorphia, what is a REMCO doll? What does that even mean? And why is that significant to what you're talking about? Well, cadets, I'll tell you. So the most formidable and politically fraught challenge of the new Black era was this need to construct Black features without falling into the terrain of racial stereotyping and essentialism. The Black consumer is far from dumb. They were no longer baited with white dolls, just painted black. She was developing a taste and need to be represented authentically through her playthings, and no one understood that more than REMCO Industries. According to Goldberg, one of the most successful companies of the 1960s thought its staff could solve that challenge and make it profitable as Black Americans demanded not only political and economic equality, but also an end to stereotypical immediate characterization. The executive leadership at REMCO Industries saw a potential market for a line of Black dolls with features that distinguish them from the company's existing white dolls. The term REMCO would be used to describe such a Black doll, which soon became part of the industry vocabulary in apartheid for dolls of color designed along racially distinctive lines, which was ethnically correct. And ethically correct. Sasha from Bratz, so REMCO. Black Barbie, REMCO. LOL. In 1968, REMCO released one of its first ethnically correct Black dolls, Tippy Tumbles. The Tippy Tumbles doll was designed by Anna McBurrows. A full-page ad in Ebony magazine claimed that REMCO produced, quote, the first truly authentic, realistic group of dolls for a child, and it's about time. When REMCO Industries made Tippy Tumbles, it seems as though it shook the toy industry by storm and gave little girls and Black parents who never really grew up with Black dolls to begin with a sense of hope. We should also keep in mind the social and human rights violation going on at the time, from Emmett Till to police brutality against Black people. It seemed as though the last thing that REMCO Industries would say was that, hey, it's okay to play with Barbies, or it's okay to play with a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed doll. That's fine. It seemed almost contradictory, especially with so many studies like the doll test coming out. A lot of psychologists at the time concluded that Black children playing with dolls that don't look like them was automatically self-hatred. And REMCO's statement that a Black girl, or a Black child, ought to make her own toy choices seemed not only somewhat unexpected, but even radical for the moment. Black children deserved a right long afforded exclusively to white children to be viewed as an innocent child, to have a choice in one's plaything and autonomy in one's play. And this is a really important part in this discussion that I want to talk about, this autonomy in one's play. But we live in an era where we can have a doll collection with all different types of races, all different types of classes, all different types of styles and aesthetics, monsters, fairy tales, traditional Barbie dolls, American Girl dolls, custom-made dolls. We live in a time where we are finally being afforded the opportunity to choose what we can play with, but I think that it needs to register in people's minds that back then, which wasn't even that long ago, by the way, maybe about like 50 years ago, Black children did not have the opportunity to choose what they wanted to play with, whether this be a white doll, a Black doll. They didn't have autonomy and the right to choose because they had very limited options. I think a lot of people of color felt the same way at the time, but Black people being the demographic that I'm focusing on for right now. REMCO created an exclusive, ethnically correct Black doll. That doesn't mean that Black kids who also play with white dolls or any other doll with any other race for that matter have internalized self-hate. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It's giving power to the kids to choose what they want to play with, and that's the gag. The use of McBurrows in this way suggests that the company's desires legitimize its efforts towards authenticity, indicating to consumers that this potentially controversial representation of Black difference by a white corporate outsider had been sanctioned by racial insiders. In other words, McBurrows confirmed on REMCO the cultural authority necessary to produce Black dolls in good faith. REMCO's commitment to racial equality could be seen in its staffing, too, including in design and supervisory positions. I think it's also important to bring light to who is being staffed at these companies and bring light to who is allowed to be supervisors and take important executive action in these companies, because diverse staffing should be the bottom line to begin with. According to Radical Play, REMCO created a standard of authenticity for Black dolls that no established business had ever created for white dolls. Seizing on the increasingly militant language of civil rights demands, the company urged retailers not to, quote, settle for less in Black dolls.
Barbie or Bratz?
Bratz.
Period. Both. But I'm a Bratz girl.
You're a Bratz girl. I could tell. See, I could just tell when
Monster High or Ever After High? Monster High.
Monster High.
Okay.
Should parents let their children choose the toys that they want to play with?
Yes and no, because like she's never gonna play with slime. Like I'm not even crossing that threshold.
I feel like they should just keep them with believing and saying that, like, you know, it's cool to do that. Let them choose or show you what they might like, or what they would want, but let them stick to like believing and saying that. Like, let them just be kids.
Let them be kids.
So like yes and no, as long as it's a toy that you know that like you can handle and the kid can handle, sure thing. But she will never ever.
She'll never touch
have
slime.
Yeah. Okay.
That's their choice.
I feel like that too, because like children should be able to like.
Yeah, that's only fair.
Yeah.
This doll, like, no.
Like
That's what you want. Yeah.
if you want to play with a Barbie doll, you can play with a Barbie doll. Do you feel like if your child like played with wanted a white doll, would you like be like, oh nah, okay?
No, but I feel like that got a lot to do with them growing up too. Like guess split date too.
Okay.
That's controlling on my end.
Exactly. Do you think parents should be in complete control of what their children play with?
50-50. Why I say 50-50 is because as far as like knowing if the toy is safe or like, you know, if it's a small child, children have that, stuff like that. If it's as far as a youth toy, making sure that it's just a proper toy for the proper age.
Yeah.
But the other 50-50 of them, it's like I said, they're playing kids. They have to enjoy it.
Right. Should parents always be in complete control of what their children play with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that when it comes to like maybe them being like even this age, I feel like just already asserting that type of control can then develop into like the parents still being able to have control of a computer or something like that. So I feel like if the child knows from jump that like my parent is in control of this, I think that can develop into other things that'll make your life easier. I just feel like, okay, like it's a doll. Like, that's disgusting. Like I remember my Bratz dolls being super risque, and I was born in '93, so I was there from the beginning. Yeah. And I remember like the uproar, like are they too teenagey? But at the end of the day, I'm 4, so I can't look like that even if I wanted to. I get that.
But yeah, thank you so much for
Of course, thank you so much.
being part of this interview.
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Now she's gonna be shy.
Oh my god, no.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
According to Radical Play, Black Dolls had a special appeal to Smith and his organization. Smith felt as though Black Dolls at the time did very little to help Black children construct a positive self-image that had been a crucial OB goal since its founding. Smith had an interest in producing goods directly related to the revolution. The official OB toy company was launched October 11th, 1968. Shandanda chose to be a force to be reckoned with during her time and was a worthy competitor for Mattel Enterprises. Known for their factory's productivity, Shandanda sought to raise industry standards for doll production nationwide. The career doll. In 1972, Shandanda released its first ever black fashion doll, Wanda. What made Wanda so different, and what about her marked her as a worthy competitor of REMCO and Mattel Enterprises? According to Radical Play, Wanda bore a striking resemblance to Mattel's recent black fashion dolls, Talking Christie, 1968, and Julia of 1969. But Wanda was different. In her first incarnation, the doll came in 3 versions of 3 career-oriented outfits: Wanda Nurse, Wanda Ballet Dancer, or Wanda the Stewardess / flight attendant. Along with the accessories specific to the career, the box contained a special brochure featuring 3 real-live career girls in action. This booklet also included photographs of a real black woman. It would surprise you to know that at first Shandanda didn't want Wanda to be considered a fashion doll, but by industry standards, any doll with moving arms is defined as a fashion doll. However, they considered Wanda to be a quote-unquote career doll. They wanted to showcase the reality of being a black woman in this economy. Professional self-reliance was at the core of this program. Shandanda prided itself on realism. According to Radical Play, in this way, Shandanda gave a form of reality to a black woman's experience as both workers and citizens, while affirming the importance of economic self-determination and self-actualization through career fulfillment to a new generation of black girls. Black women needed to see success embodied. When you think of Fisher Price, what do you think of? Those little puzzles? Do you think of actual fish? Do you think of, like, one of those, like, complex toy lines that they had? By the early 1970s, Fisher Price had caught on to this new radical wave of inclusion. They saw the demand for black dolls rise in the market, so they set out to produce a black doll of their own. Founded in 1930, Fisher Price had pioneered the mainstream middle-class market for infant and early childhood playthings, often known as preschool toys. It did this in 2 ways: by invoking child development theory as a cornerstone of its toy-making philosophy and emphasizing its extensive toy research. Fisher Price prided itself on a level of quality, supposed cognitive benefits, and the production of, quote, play value, the capacity of a toy that keeps a child's interest and invites a range of uses. Just like Uranian Thunder, in the midst of revolution and change, Fisher Price's first racially correct black little girl doll, Elizabeth, hit the toy streets. I mean, if the social atmosphere was right, the age of Aquarius was here. How could this fail? Just one tiny issue. Fisher-Price hadn't made any black dolls in the past. This was a company who targeted themselves to white children. They had no idea what black children wanted or what blackness even was. First, the company hired an outside consulting firm to conduct focus group tests exclusively for Elizabeth, with the hopes of a better understanding the combination of features that produced an attractive black doll in the eyes of people they presumed would be the doll's main consumers, black mothers of young black children. Focus group tests are just one type of market research, and in some aspects, the most in-depth and reliable. What distinguishes them from other market research is that they are qualitative administrators of groups, bringing together people from a particular consumer demographic on a broad mix and then initiating conversations about their product interests and their desires. Two key findings emerged from the Elizabeth focus group test. Several of them took place in Midwestern cities where they were reviewed by marketers as good barometers of popular taste. First, the black women who participated not only wanted the dolls to be brown in color, but also made it very clear that a head mold that was not ethnically correct would be insulting. Second, the preference was for the doll to have sufficiently long and straight rooted hair that could be combed and fashioned by a child into the greatest variety of styles. It just didn't make sense to me that at the time they wanted that doll to have straight hair. Like, if y'all were on the train of like doing things radically, like why not like just be like, hey, like this is an unapologetically beautiful black doll and she has kinky hair and you can style it too. But a lot of things go into that. I also think like self-hatred is a component of that. Maybe they would like make it really insulting. So I don't know, but they were definitely not ready for that hair conversation back in like the 1970s. Yes, there's an aspect of the world was not ready for that type of change yet. I mean, motherfuckers was just starting to realize that everyone is equal regardless of skin color. They were just starting to see that African Americans were not subhuman. Isn't that like freaking insane? The stigma from that would obviously contribute to texturism from inside and outside of the black diaspora. I'm just happy we're finally learning how to style and care for our natural hair. I'm also just so happy that this is finally being showcased on our dolls as well. Anyways, back to Fisher-Price. Since the early 1960s, growing numbers of black women had been making hair an important and often controversial signifier of black female political identity, a means to show their solidarity. Natural styles like the afro might still contain those meanings for many women, but they had also become mainstream commercial styles embraced by fashion and advertising industries with little reference to their black consciousness and black feminist roots. Women's magazines at the time, from those that until recently featured only white women such as Harper's Bazaar, to black-oriented glossy magazines like Ebony, indicate a clear preference for natural over other styles that some perceive negatively as more conventionally white. Elizabeth was marketed to black people and sold as a black doll. Out of every doll on that toy line, Elizabeth was made a spectacle. Racialized. Racialized. Keyword racialized. They made a black doll for black people and did not think to market her correctly to everyone. Elizabeth eventually sold poorly. No one could say why for sure, but I speculate it was because Fisher-Price could not escape racialized thinking. That's just my opinion. I feel like with the launch of Elizabeth during the 1970s, I feel like they could have done a better job. Definitely like with marketing, not only just to black people, but to everyone. More advertisements on television and like more advertisements in like children's parenting forums and magazines at the time. I don't think forums exist. I don't know if that's an online term. Like magazines catered towards like moms. I definitely think that like with the right push in that direction, Elizabeth probably would have sold better, but hey, I'm not a marketing or branding specialist. I'm just saying.
So if you've gotten to this part of the video, you're probably curious about how we can implement some strategies from radical play into our lives as adult collectors, or just concerned adults like myself, parents, rich aunties, childless cat ladies. How can you approach this topic with delicacy and advocacy and radicalism? I would always say, update yourself with what's happening in the doll community. New brands coming out or new launches of dolls. Update yourself about what's going on with the rate of diversity. If you're concerned about like buying a doll of color or a black doll for your loved one. Follow some doll channels on YouTube. Clawdeen 9 is a good doll channel that I follow. I used to follow my Froggy stuff. God, you guys remember my Froggy stuff? Bro, literally made my whole like 2015 year. Like there were times where I would do nothing but like sit there on YouTube and watch my Froggy stuff, like build her sets and her little, oh my god, I love things like that. I used to watch this stop motion channel called Lisa Kitty, and she would like make amazing stop motion films, like amazing ones, and I'm just like, how? Unfortunately, I think I called her out for being a racist because For Clawdeen, she would put on a black scent and sort of make Clawdeen into like a really ghetto caricature. Whenever Clawdeen was in a shot, she was saying something really sexual or like with violence. So I just had to let her know. I've been watching her channel for a really long time and this shit is racist. Yeah, I called her out. I don't care. If there's one thing I'm gonna do, it's I'm gonna hold people accountable. I don't care if you've been my favorite creator for 10 years. I'm gonna say, hey, that's not cool. I don't look at you like you're on a pedestal, and I'll say that to anybody. I'll say that to anyone. Like, deal with my Mars in the 8th house. Guys, donate to toy drives. When I was younger, I used to go to toy drives in my like local zone schools, the ones that I wasn't going to, and I can count on my fingers how much dolls of color I've seen. When you guys donate to toy drives, donate black dolls and donate dolls of color, because I am not gonna sit here and play with Mermaid Barbie and Ballerina Barbie. And Barbie's cute, but I already expressed my feelings on Barbie. Please donate Bratz dolls or something. Maybe some like Ever After High dolls. Yeah, 13-year-old me would love that. This isn't about 13-year-old me, stop projecting. It's about the future of our children. Please donate more black dolls. Like, now that you guys are more conscious, and I'm talking to my people who are more conscious in the mind, obviously if you've made it this far in this video, you're conscious, you're radical. My work here is done, obviously. A lot of people end up starting their toy collections and like their doll collections are wealthy and privileged, let's be honest. You have some sort of privilege. That's why I say it's a status symbol. It's like a cultural signifier to have a collection of something, whether that be manga or dolls, mainly dolls. People in our generation at least love showing off our collections. So imagine Gen Alpha, they're going to obsess over it. And while I'm not a fan of materialism for myself, this isn't about me, I can see like the bigger vision of if children want to doll collect, they should totally be allowed the option to do that. Do some background research on the companies that you're buying from. If the history of Mattel doesn't sit right with you, please don't buy from them. We can disregard Barbie. We don't have to continue the cycle of, oh my god, Barbie, oh my god, Barbie, that bitch. Like, if you really feel like the history isn't sitting right with you, you don't have to involve yourself within that culture. I only talked about Barbie because Barbie's kind of relevant as of 2023, but there's always a new thing. So do some background research on the companies you are buying from to get a clear scope on their viewpoints towards inclusion. Inform others around you. Share this video, like this video, subscribe to Anamorphia, maybe, I don't know. I think you should, because my videos on this channel are guaranteed to radicalize anyone. Swear to God, I'll like start a video and by the end of it, you're like a little radicalized soldier, and that was the intention. You're welcome, cadet. So that was all. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this part wasn't too long, and I hope I didn't ramble for too long. Thank you guys for tuning in, and to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for being here and sticking around. The doll collectors and the, you know, lesbian fans that I have who love my content and watch my content, you have a special place in my heart, and I want you to know you are the sole reason this video is probably out at this point in time, and you hold a special place in my heart. So I just want to say thank you to my lesbian fans. I want to say thank you to my queer fans, to my trans fans, my new subscribers. You have no idea how much of an impact that you're making or an impression that you're making on me and the community by subscribing. I don't have some sort of grandiose vision. I swear I don't have an entitled sense of grandeur, but the next video essays that I'm on the verge of putting out, I feel will definitely change the trajectory of internet culture. My intention with all of my videos is to radicalize people. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you subscribe to Anamorphia. Links down to all the resources I've used on this video in the description. Radicalize your playing. If you still play with dolls and you're an adult now, absolutely no judgment, because dolls are little figurines we use to navigate the world. And if you want to use that as a part of your
world domination tactic, as a part of your villain origin story,
I think that you should. Happy holidays. I was gonna say Merry Christmas, but like I think we're all past the point of like Merry Christmas. I don't remember the last time I celebrated a holiday. I can't lie to you. After the pandemic hit, Christmas has never been the same. Thanksgiving has never been the same. Halloween, never heard of her. I don't celebrate holidays now, but happy holidays if you do. I just like have completely disregarded it, and it's almost subconscious. It's almost like, yeah, let this die. So that's the type of can-do, positive spirit that I'm going to bring to the next videos on this channel. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Don't forget to subscribe.